maybe a month ago, we were in the car and I just kept opening my palms up to Matt with my fingers kind of held open. And I kept going like, I just keep feeling like this. And I'd hold my palms up and open, like accepting something, right? And I was like, I don't know what this means. Does this mean anything to you?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I think I just am imagining water or sand just kind of like rolling, like hitting my palm and just kind of like falling through my fingers. And I'm like, well, what does that mean?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of
The Tattoo
Guardian
Podcast
Show with myself, Hip, and
Katie, Matt's wife.
yes. And today we discuss
a lot about the spectrum of what your spouse looks like when
And how you support.
one another in this life of being tattoo artists. We cover the gamut on that. What else do we talk about?
delight and what it looks like and acceptance and
What matters, what doesn't matter.
In the midst of the storm, sunshine or rain, what your life can look like right here today in the present moment while letting go of everything you thought it was supposed to look like, right?
right with that and so much more on today's episode. So stay.
Oh, tuned? Is it tuned?
Yeah.
that
Stay
works.
tuned.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. Stay here. Stay a while with us. I'll get better. I'm workshopping some
You doing
things.
good, little
Why
mama.
don't you just hang out? And
That's it. That's it. And I get to share my beautiful wife with you, the whole world,
Awkward.
today on today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Brother Hip. How are you today?
Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again, tuning in faithfully every single week. This week, our brother Joshua Carlton is out getting some much-needed rest. But we have a real special guest on here today. You may already see her in the shot. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to introduce to you such a powerful soul. You know, I'm a coach in the tattoo industry, as you know. I'm a mentor to many. I'm a father to many. And it's that old saying, behind every good man's a great woman. And not only am I a coach, but I have coaches too. And I brought one of them on here today. This gal has impacted my life and has been a teacher and a coach in my life for, going on 13 years now. And she helps me behind the scenes and has coached me through a lot. Coached me 5 minutes ago before we got on here. So I decided to bring one of my coaches on here and just started conversation and see where it takes us. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing you to one of my top coaches. This is Miss Katie Stratton.
hey.
Hi.
How are you
Hello.
today?
Hey, guys.
Man, what an honor.
Wild.
Happy day.
Hey, I'm here.
You are here.
I'm here.
My goodness. And we coming in blind today. We
Yeah.
did not give Miss Stratton here any sort of guidance or guidelines of what we're even going to talk about today. Hip, isn't that crazy?
Sounds like the norm.
You know, one of the areas she's helped me in my life, there's all types of people in life. Some people have all their ducks in order in a row, right? Other people have ducks and they're just scattered fucking everywhere. Then there's people like me that don't even own a duck, right? But we need one another. And so she's more of cross every T, dot every line. She's a planner, systems, processes, structure, strategy, all of that. So for us to bring her on here and not giving her any of that
A
and
nightmare.
just saying we're going on, that's right.
A nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
But just this whole part of, what I've been experiencing lately is it, of letting go of things. So this is like real time
And there's
letting go.
there's a good balance,
Yeah.
because if I get like a new toy at the shop, I will especially if it goes in my booth, I will rearrange everything and fall into a state of analysis paralysis because like I have to organize this box and move to here to here to here. So it's like and it's weird. Sometimes I like the spontaneity.
Yeah.
in certain scenarios. Like we're getting ready to go out to Evergreen with Joshua Carlton and do his convention, and I never plan anything. I just like to show up, and it's like even when we go to Hell City, like everyone at the shops got their places rented, and I'm like, I'll find a place when I get there, you know, and I usually stick to that. But there are certain things that like I have to be punctual about and cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yeah.
But then some things also, like it drove me nuts when we first started this without like having, we got a structure, or maybe we grew into it. I don't even fucking know. But Matt was like, isn't that crazy? And I was like, not really, because that's kind of how we fucking go every week.
I remember asking him when you guys first started, like, okay, like, what do you guys have, like a list of topics? And it was like, no. And yeah, I was nervous for you guys.
Oh, great. Now everyone knows we've been winging it.
But then you get these really great conversations. And
That's
then,
right.
you know.
Yeah,
So,
it's more organic.
yeah.
And-
I think it's cool that you're not like that in all aspects, where like, you know,
Right.
just like certain little things you like to, you know, be on top of, and then everything else can kind of let it
Yeah.
unfold. I don't know. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Katie, you mentioned momentarily that even though, you know, you even used the word nightmare, usually being thrusted into a scenario like this, going in blind with
Yeah.
some sort of expectation, but no clarity on what those expectations are, meaning like,
Yeah.
we want you on the show. Cool. Well, how can I help serve your audience? Well, we don't fucking know that. Just come on and we'll talk, right?
Right.
Is the nightmare. But then
Yeah.
you mentioned that the season you've been in, you've been thrusted into and have been forced
Yeah.
to show up in the world in a different way. Can you speak to that a little bit more, what you meant by that?
Yeah. We both got COVID in August, right? And it's pretty mild, but for some reason mine like went to my brain. And so like my official diagnosis is post COVID narcolepsy, is that, and cataplexy. So when you think of narcolepsy and you think of these things, you think of movies and it's a joke and it doesn't seem like it would be a big deal. But I mean, it is like completely uprooted our lives. Like it's every day I'm in bed. I can't get out of bed. I have these, you know, paralytic attacks. So health things aside, all these things that like mattered to me, I thought made me, my duties around the house, like my job, me as a mom, all of these things now like I can't do. I have to have help for almost everything. So it's been this like constant process of acceptance and letting go, but not in like a defeating way. I think that's important to like, it's caused me to do a lot of introspection, like a lot.
Pivoting.
Yeah, constant
Well,
pivoting.
And
Yeah.
when she says it's caused me to do a lot of introspection, you know, because most of us want to do introspection. Sometimes we set aside time to
What
do
is
that.
introspection?
Looking inward.
Okay. Man, you would think
Meditating,
I would know what that word meant.
Yeah, you do it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You do introspection all the time.
Yeah.
And it's taking a look at you, looking inward, setting aside time, stopping. But people like us have to make a conscious effort to do that. Now you do it, guys like you and I do it on default all the time, cruising. But then most people set aside time, their morning routine, their meditation, prayer, to set aside and to do introspection on where you're at in life right now, right? Some of us plan to do that. She has been slammed into that being her only option because her whole body has been shut down.
So,
Except
you
for my
know-
mind. That's the
except
craziest
for her
part.
mind. And you know the fact that she's sitting here conscious, able to talk to us right now is a big deal.
Right.
And we also know that we could lose her at any moment.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about if and when that happens, we'll either have Mike edited it out or we'll just see, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your willingness and the courage to show up here
Yeah.
totally.
in the midst of the storm you're in, battling. I mean, guys, you don't know this, but I mean, just 2 hours ago, she was bedridden,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now she's up looking beautiful.
I've got the little shimmy shake. So if you're
Yeah.
watching on YouTube, I don't know if that's normal narcolepsy stuff or cataplexy, or if it's part of the COVID. It's all just kind of but I'll get these like little tremors and constantly.
She got Fat Joe in
Yeah.
her left ear.
He's always like, I got some
She just,
beat, like
twerking. She got a little twerk going on. You know.
Well, you know, that makes me think, because people get to see this. One thing that we do keep structured in this podcast is the ugly foot, you know, or what could be perceived as an ugly foot. Now, this necessarily isn't an ugly foot. It's something you have to live with. But in the world of social media and presentation, people don't want to show things like that.
And I stopped social media a few years ago for a lot of different reasons, but also because I was constantly in my head about like, well, that wasn't that. I like, why did I say that? Why did I post that like that? And then feeling like, oh, I should share like the nitty gritty stuff, right? But then like, well, no one wants to see that. And I'm like constantly checking your whys on things. And I was like, I just don't need to do it at all.
And she even checks my why now, like because whether I'm like either trying to serve our community or working on marketing, branding, even a launch post, anything, any type of post. You know, and her being one of my coaches will bounce it off to her, and she always hits me. But why, Matt? Why are you going to why are you even doing it? Why are you dropping that post to force me to really check my own ass? Am I doing this just for likes? My why, I'm not judged for it. Whatever my why isn't good, bad, right, or wrong, but it's for me to get real clear on why the fuck I'm doing this and why today and why am I showing up in this way, which helps me really take a look at me and my own why and could cause me to pivot or let go of all the shit that like we worry about that we shouldn't be. If my why is really pure, then why am I worried about like potential haters or people that I know is going to be judging me when we all got to overcome it. But
yeah, I just realized there's so much noise. I just keep coming back to that. And it's been interesting with what I'm dealing with right now. I get overwhelmed, a lot of like overstimulation. Yeah. And so I've been feeling this like, there's so much noise. Like online, it's just constant advice and opinions. And so now even in life, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much noise everywhere. I feel like I'm like hyper aware of it. So it's just been interesting that I had this kind of feeling even before this that like, why are we saying the things that we're saying? And so I've just been real cognizant of.
So before you got thrust into like introspective. Yeah. How were you before that? Did you set time aside or were you constantly in it?
And to let you guys know this, can you imagine your whole body being tied down and like tied down to a bed or a chair and forced to stay there for months? She's going on 7 months of her body shutting down and being forced to go inward, right? And that can be a scary place. Like you always say, Hip, you never go in your own head without a friend and a flashlight because you come out worse off than what you were going in alone. But this strong woman, one, doesn't take too many friends with her anywhere, let alone in her own head, and has the strength. She has gone and faced the darkness and the demons into the abyss of the dark places we can go to in our mind, especially when we're discouraged as fuck, defeated, our life's been stripped from us, and you're laying there a victim to the circumstances of everything we thought is no more. And that's when you can go into the dark abyss. Mind you, before this even happened, she already was dealing with so much, mourning the death of her sister, and of her grandma. It's just been hit after hit. So already on top of an already dark place, boom, whole life being wrecked. I
think I've always been comfortable doing some inner thinking. I'm like maybe a little neurotic sometimes in my head, always kind of like maybe overthinking, but I realized today the nature of like my narcolepsy and stuff is like, and my cataplexy, my whole body's paralyzed, but I'm conscious. I'm just trapped in my brain, right? And you think with narcolepsy that you're like, oh, you're just sleepy all the time and you take really great naps, but it's not at night. It doesn't feel like you're sleeping. Your brain is running, but you're actually sleeping. And your dreams, like your dream wake, like thing is like all messed up. And so I don't get restful sleep either because I'm either feeling like I'm not even asleep when I am, or
to the point nighttime, right?
At nighttime,
when you're supposed to give your body rest and your soul, right? and hers is like fucking
Yeah,
all
so I
going
realized
haywire.
today I'm constantly trapped in my head, and it was just an interesting thought that I hadn't really thought of until today. That like, I guess just kind of thinking about, because I've had some really big kind of revelations or things that I've like never thought about before kind of happen over the past few months, and I'm like, but how did that happen? We joked that it was the medication they put me on, but and we know that's not true, but it was just like, it was a funny like thing to laugh about. But if I really thought about it, it was because I would have been forced to stay in my head when nothing else works.
But kudos to you, because you could have become lost in the abyss forever and not came back from a mental place.
Yeah, I was calling it an abyss. I could call it an abyss. I felt it. After those first few months, we didn't know. I didn't have a diagnosis yet. We weren't sure if I was being hurt by whatever was happening to me.
Right.
We were told by a bunch of different specialists that they didn't know what it was and thought I was like psychosomatic, or maybe I was like stressed
or dope fiend at one point.
Yeah, that first night they thought I was overdosing when Matt took me in.
Gonna help her because until she fessed up and quit lying that she's not on fentanyl.
Yeah, they were like,
she's like dying right before us. Like her potassium dropped to death levels, and I got pissed. And I finally told them, like, because they didn't believe her, and they were yelling at her and threatening her, and I got fucking pissed. But just because of how I look like the one that fucking shot
Sold
her
it
up.
to her.
right?
You know what I'm saying? Might be pimping her out, whatever. So they didn't believe me either, and I got pissed. And I was like, well, then her blood will tell you the truth. Take her blood, and the second they took her blood, then they changed their tune. By then, she was
and they're
fucking...
like, oh, sweetie, your potassium's low. But before that, they were like, tell us what you're taking. And it gave me a whole new perspective for people who might be overdosing. I know, different topic, but like it was pretty inhumane that first night. And I had like
if they think you're an addict, they treat you like scum of the earth. Even if you are dying, they don't even give a fuck, and they're yelling at you on top of it because they thought she was that, and it made you feel bad for the people who are OD.
Instant empathy, like no one deserves to be treated. I'm like, what if I was overdosing? That would be really scary. And my like it was awful. But for some reason, my potassium was like at death levels. Like I could feel my heart wasn't beating right. My lungs were shutting down. It was really scary. And we were assuming it was, I didn't know I had COVID yet, but that's kind of where it all started. But we didn't know what was happening to me for months.
We're in the middle of a world pandemic. They're yelling at her about being on fentanyl. And then they took her blood and realized, oh, that's not it. Her potassium dropped to death levels. But you know what they didn't check her for? COVID, which you'd have thought would be the first fucking thing. We had to leave there and go test ourselves, and she had COVID.
It was after a few days. I still wasn't feeling right, and my breathing still felt kind of odd. And I was talking to my therapist, like I did like teletherapy, and she was like, could you have COVID? And I was like, I don't know. So we just tested randomly, and I did. So, but for months we didn't know what was happening to me, which that's where I think that abyss kind of came, because there was no clarity.
So the potassium dropped because of COVID.
I'm guessing we still haven't got clarity, but my understanding is that COVID can kind of like make your blood work like skyrocket. So that night that Matt first took me in, my potassium was like, I think 2.5 is like life-threatening, and mine was like 2.3.
Well, me and Megan were told to take potassium pills.
Yeah.
I didn't think potassium was that important, but
I
take it almost every day.
When they told me I had low potassium,
long ever?
Yeah. I didn't understand. But then my blood sugar was like at diabetic levels that night, and then every time that Matt took me in since, like, I think you guys took me to the emergency room like 2 or 3 times after that.
Multiple times.
It just kept happening. And every time something different was off on my blood work. And
every time it was like a new case, a new mystery. Everyone was calling her a medical mystery. For those of you who don't know by now, the cat's out of the bag. Not only is Katie one of my coaches, she's also my wife.
Our wife.
This is
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is what keeps the guardians together. She takes care of both of us. No,
and Josh when he comes over.
Yep. No, but this is Miss Katie Stratton. She is also my wife, which is why we've shared a lot of the same experiences, which is why I was in that hospital room every fucking time.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, bud. Is that okay?
I wanted to do that too. There she is. Look how fucking beautiful my wife is. Man, I'm the luckiest dude in the world. We might need to just take a break here and me and you go have a quick one-on-one. Just fine.
It's this high button collar, isn't it?
Yeah, girl. I know what she's trying
It's
to
that
say.
hidden clavicle that gets you.
Yeah.
Clavicle.
Man, just the way she says that, it gets me every time. Yeah. Oh shit, man.
Yeah.
When you had your wife Megan on, when
Yes.
Josh had his wife Nicole on, and we watched them. Obviously, we watch every episode that we do, and Katie checked them both out. And we realized, for all of you artists who have listened to the Other Wives episodes and you are seeing how supportive and fucking in the trenches Nicole and Megan are with Hip and Josh, with their man, like all in, sleeves rolled up, all in the game. If you're a tattoo artist and you listen to Megan's story or Nicole and Carlton's story and you think to yourself, fuck, my woman's not like that. She don't come to every show. She don't run the fucking booth. She don't handle my booking, whatever. Like, I don't have a partner like that. Man, that must be nice. There must be something wrong with my woman, right? She was almost hesitant to come on the show because she couldn't be further from that herself. Like if Megan and Nicole are over here on this side of the spectrum, and we call this all-in, hands-on support with your man, then you go all the way the other spectrum where it seems to be never there, hands off, right?
He's going, just scooch it a little.
My bad. Beep,
the
beep.
way.
Beep, beep.
We're gonna work this out in real time with each other.
Yeah.
Our support looks a lot different, and so it's easy to think or to feel maybe subconscious like it looks like maybe I'm not a supportive wife, and so that couldn't be any further from the truth. So
that's right.
Yeah, so it is important that we can
for you
represent.
artists, and you have a spouse or a partner that doesn't come to the shows with you, doesn't show up to work every day, whatever. And what does that look like? And I think we're the perfect example of how you can have such a bond in a relationship with your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife, but it doesn't mean they have to be there physically present in the flesh to prove it ever, right? And that's
and that there's not, either way is fine. It's just like what works for each individual like partnership. And
right.
For us, I think we realized pretty early on that what worked best for us was for you to be able to just go out and be on your own. Mm-hmm. And for me to handle things at home, and that works for us.
Works huge, and there's like tremendous trust there.
Yeah,
I'm because as a tattoo artist, I could be like tattooing cleavage or vagina until 4 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
So there's trust there.
Always, even if,
big time communication. I mean, I don't feel like the luckiest man in the world, especially, but it's been 13 years of a journey to get to where we're at. Yeah. It took years and falling outs or fights or miscommunication for us to find our sweet spot, our footing. But once we found it, is off to the races. Now I can go anywhere in the world, and she's with me in spirit, and I've got all the support in the world. Now, yes, are there times like it's like, oh my God, I wish she was here to see this or that?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Not to mention we got 3 kids, and one of us, she also stayed behind to be mama, right?
Yeah.
But she's the most supportive gal, and knows me and knows my heart and coaches me, even if it's over the phone.
Yeah.
All the fucking time, and she doesn't have to be there or be present, and it more than works. It's exactly what the doctor ordered for us.
Yeah, I think when I first started hanging around you when you were tattooing, I saw pretty quickly that this was therapy for your clients, and I'm sure like you probably experienced that too. And not every client probably, I know there's probably some really like light sessions that aren't very heavy, but like with you specifically, I noticed like it almost felt like I was intruding almost on this like kind of private thing. And so really early on, I was like, I know you wanted me around, but I was like, I think I just kind of want you to be able to have this one-on-one time with your client, because I know you guys would get into like some pretty
the
deep
level
things
in the level of her security in herself, you know, that she doesn't need to be there too. You know, she's not insecure. She's so secure in herself. She's like, you go be. Early on, she also noticed, like, oh, if I'm signing up for a life with this Mr. Clemmer dude, she realized real quick that she's going to have to be okay with what she calls sharing me with the world.
Yeah.
That I'm a bird not meant to be caged and it's just for her to visit. That I'm a bird that's meant to fly, and that she knew immediately that you're going to have to share me with the world, right?
Yeah. Real early on, I saw, like, we'd go out to dinner and people would come up and want to talk or want to, like, you know, anywhere we went.
Unlike our first or second date when we're trying to be one-on-one, but I have no anonymity in this town because of the art form of building relationships, and they'll just fucking come out of the woodwork anywhere.
And that was cool because when we first met, I had no idea who he was, like, not at all. I think I had one time a girlfriend showed me a piece on her arm and she said, Matt Clemmer did it. And I remember her saying that, but I didn't know who he was. I didn't understand that you have built so many relationships and mean a lot to so many people, right? So when we would have these like one-on-one times together, it always ended up having to be shared. And so I'm like, okay, like,
and that has not changed.
No, it's probably gotten worse, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like, if this is going to work for us, I have to, like, there's things like that I need to get on board with and be okay with. And am I okay with it? Yeah, I'm okay with that. So
was there any of them that, like, you've gotten to a certain point in the relationship and you're so tight that, like, you weren't okay with it, but, like, you had to, like, sacrifice?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, like, the people that know Matt know that, like, some miraculous things happen almost every day, something amazing. And so there were points where
you hear how she says, like, here we go again, another fucking great miracle.
Right? It kind of got that way.
Okay.
He'd be like, I'll be home at this time, you know, and at this point, you know, we had 2 kids, and
he shows up at 6 a.m. and saved Haiti. Yeah.
He would come home hours sometimes late, and and I'd be ready to be like upset, right?
Yeah.
Like, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
And something wonderful, you'll never guess, like
food drive for all the prostitutes,
right? Like this wonderful, like, thing, right? Like, and it happened a lot. And so then I'm like, am I allowed to still be mad? Like, and I'd have to, like, kind of swallow, and then I'd just be passive aggressive probably. But there were moments like that where I'm like, dang it, this isn't, like, he has to prioritize us at some point, which we figured out.
Right.
But
and this
to
thing
you,
called,
like,
this thing called communication too. Like, another fucking miracle. So you're 5 hours late. Well, why didn't you tell me? Like, you know, even if it's simple as, hey babe, I know I said I'd be home in 30 minutes, but I feel I'm being called down to 3rd Street to do some sort of miracle, and you know me, I'm just following my inner voice. I don't even fucking know till I get there. I'm just trusting the process, you know.
I'm just showing up at the jail to paint.
I mean, that's a daily that is a daily thing for him, is getting these, you know, instinctual, like, I've got to go do this thing, or I got to go talk to this person, go visit that person, and and that it seems like they come out of nowhere. Right?
Early on, did you ever think it's some bullshit and you got cynical and you tried to, like, find loopholes in it, like this, or ever, like, got on some, like, crazy shit and been like, well, I'm gonna fucking go see what he's doing?
Oh yeah, I would check his phone. Like, we went through some paranoia, like.
Surely he's got to be cheating on me, coming home this late in the middle of the night every night. You're really just doing something every night. Right. You know.
I mean, I'm assuming the hours you would keep weren't necessarily normal.
Correct.
Like, he'd be coming home at like 5 or 6 every morning.
Right.
And I'd see, like, on Instagram, like, he'd post the finished tattoo at like midnight. And so then I'm like, where were you? And he's like, oh, I'm just driving around. And it's like, okay. And, like, you know, I want to be, you know.
Stay on my business.
I want to be, like, chill, cool, like, trusting wife. But it was like, there were certain points where it just was like, surely not. And, you know, and I've gone through infidelity and cheating before. And so it took a lot for you and I had to decide really early on, was I going to let that, like, was I going to carry those insecurities into this relationship? And I decided not to. And felt like I could do that, and but it got tested.
Fuck
it got tested, because it, especially if maybe, like, you were working 6-7 days a week at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'd be waking up as we were like off to do something, me and the kids, and then we wouldn't see him again until the next morning, and he's going to bed. So we weren't really getting a lot of time to invest in each other. So during that period where he's working a ton, he's not coming home at night, and I also feel like maybe our like tanks, our love tanks for each other were maybe a little emptied. I was like, I'd check his phone. I would get really paranoid. And just because I had been cheated on before, and I think we probably all have, those red flag feelings, and so it's.
The good news is that wasn't ever the case.
It's not. He literally was just driving around. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So he says.
And I can get it, because it's like, I think all I mean, I don't know. There's a new wave of like tattooers that
are part-timers.
Yeah. Or the whole like, clock in, clock out, 8 to 6 or whatever the fucking hours are for normal people. But the majority of the industry seems to be in like weird hours. And it reminds me, like her talking about like her insecurities and stuff and wondering what you were doing, reminds me of that shirt I seen. It said like what my mom thinks I'm doing, and it shows like a guy at like a satanic ritual, and then it says like what my friends think I'm doing, and it's like a dude kicked back with all these naked chicks and money. And it says what my wife thinks I'm doing, and it's like him making out with 2 chicks, and it says what I'm actually doing, and it's just a dude sitting there tattooing.
Yeah, right.
Because it is weird hours, and there's been times where like I've felt led to like go and take my client out for dinner, or like me and another artist get done, and it's like, dude, we can hit the late showing for the new Batman, and we just take off and do that. And you said communication is important, and it's like I've tried to get better at doing that, or even extending the hand to Megan, and she'll be like, no, I'm cool, go out and do it. But and we tattoo on some very attractive people sometimes, and it's like, laying in bed waiting for your husband, knowing that he's like tattooing a stripper until the late night, and he's the last one in the shop,
and
all
intimate.
types of things.
Like you're close proximity, you're touching each other's skin, you're talking, like, and that's the beauty of it, right? That personal connection. And so you do have to have that trust, but also you can't control your clients, right? So like you have to be able to like give that kind of security to your partner too, that they know that, because I know he can't control the people he's around, so I need to trust that he can handle that kind of stuff, because it'll come up, right?
Fuck yeah. Luckily, I'm so head over heels in love with this woman that it's never been an issue. And even in the times, but when she says you can't control, because we can't control clients making passes at us, we operate so professionally. Like, and I always feel bad because most of the clients that have thrown themselves at me and hit on me, it's most tattoo artists' dream. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do some try to trade or something.
Is that a thing?
Oh, sex trades?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I always felt bad because so many women that's offered it to me, I feel like they picked the one dude.
Or dudes. Dudes offer it too.
Yeah, sure.
But most dudes like will know if you're straight or gay.
Well, you would think that.
Right. But,
you
guys
can't assume anymore. So like,
I've been hit on before by dudes.
Dude, I've been
Zach gets hit on all the time by dudes.
But that's because he's Zach.
Yeah.
But no, I think I've been hit on by more dudes than women. Yeah. Even though they know I'm straight, they think like maybe
you're the
be
great
the
white
one
buffalo
that can convert me. You know what I'm saying?
That's super brave.
We've even talked about it, because I'm open. So I've even checked in with myself like periodically over the years. Like, am I like? Could I be gay even for one night? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, try and lend myself, and it's just not in me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But they couldn't be safer to
try with me.
Ask, feel out.
Yeah,
like
guys or girls.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I can, we appreciate the confidence. Like,
I think
man, if I had half the confidence this bitch has got hitting on me, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? But and there's always a cadence there. But I'm so head over heels in love with her, and whenever that deal would show up, one thing I would do is just start telling them about my wife. and how fucking great she is, how much I love her, to try and prevent
I've never heard him do that.
He doesn't
Right.
do it.
You fucking wait till this episode's over. Just kidding. No. But anyways,
Yeah. Yeah,
because for me, I always feel bad rejecting them. And so I always either play dumb, like I'm not noticing the passes. They're making passes at me. Then I'll start talking about my wife and my children, how happily married I am, blah, blah. And if they still, eventually I'll get forced to have to just reject, saying no thanks. And
but
she's
like, thank
with
you.
it.
You made my day.
Totally. I'm so flattered, whatever.
Yeah.
But she's
Wild.
noticed, even like my, because we'll get some crazies, some girls that are like way into me and they're like my biggest fan until they force me to have to tell them like, nah, like I consider you a great friend and a client, but that's kind of where it stops. Then they become psycho, and I've had several stalkers.
Early on.
I just tell them I have HIV.
That works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got Truvada for PrEP now, so. I don't know.
Early on, real early on, like I forced Matt and I to be friends for like a long time.
It seemed like forever.
Maybe 6 months. I was
you
like
meant
holding
playing hard
him.
to get?
No, when we met, I was like not. I had just like my marriage had ended a few months before that.
So you didn't want the rebound.
I had been dating and it was awful. I was like, I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna like single mom it and then he swept in and I was like, I didn't want it. I wasn't interested but like, it was really hard because we were drawn to each other, but I forced us to be friends for a really long time.
And I wouldn't give up, but it took, she definitely made me work for it and was testing me because so many dudes were throwing themselves at her and saying all the things.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah.
But
early on,
and I had like mad competition all around,
But you
and
had
it was
some
hard for me to
yeah.
like tell her like what was different about me than all the other dudes saying the same shit I said. Like, no, I'm for real, and so was everyone else that was in love with her,
It was just an awkward time, but he had some stalkers back then that
I did.
would drive past his house and leave things and start messaging me, and so
I've got a cross tattoo behind my ear. One of my stalkers, after, she was blowing me up at bar 30, and I had to tell her like, nah, she came in the next day and got as a walk-in and got an appointment with the artist right next to me and got my cross behind her ear to match mine and just glared at me while she was getting it. You know what I'm saying? Just like,
It was wild because I'm like, what am I signing up for here? But, once we were together and it was known, that did kind of stop. At least I stopped noticing. But, yeah, it's...
Were there any other tattoo artists that were interested in you?
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like,
She
you
was
were in
dating one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, kind of. Well,
She's like,
define dating.
No, I wasn't. But,
Okay.
so
You
you were in
want-
the industry kind of a little bit.
a little bit. So I had my right arm. I already had a half sleeve.
She had
technically.
some tattoos. Is that what you're
Yeah, and
saying?
our friend Josh Wilson
Yeah.
did my inner arm, and that's actually he introduced Matt and I. So, yeah. But no, I wasn't dating any artists. But yeah, I was like, of the world kind of.
But she came up in the scene, even in like the music scene and stuff. She was around like scenester kids, and
Yeah, I was
there's
on, like,
almost
the
an
emo and
8-year
hardcore
gap.
shows.
Yeah, she'd go to the emo hardcore shows, but I'm almost 8 years older than her, so there was also a generational gap there.
Come on now, 8 years.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, it's 7.
Okay.
But I have older sisters, and my one sister Angie is the same age as Matt, so it was like things that so I could understand a lot of like the references he was saying. So I'm like, yeah, I know that. I think that helps. But,
Yeah, when he's like, man, I wish these cars you could still crank them to get them started. And you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I got an older sister too. I remember that. He's like, man, all these colored TVs. I wish it was still black and white.
It doesn't really come up that much, our age difference.
No,
No.
it doesn't. She's an old soul, and I'm young blood, so it works
Yeah.
out.
Have you had any stalker experiences or any like intense connections with clients?
I don't know. I'm kind of oblivious to stuff like that. I don't know if they want to fuck or not. Unless they make it very obvious, but I've always been like, so I've been pretty much monogamous my whole life.
Yeah.
I was raised by my sister, my mom, and my grandmother, so I was brought up to have utmost respect for women.
Yeah.
And like none of them were really like out there sleeping around in the town, so like I just seen.
It's not what I heard, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, my mom, I love you, Handkerchief Joyce, what they used to call her back in the day.
Aww.
I don't know what that means.
Cut it. No, it was just an inside joke with when I wreck on my mom. They say like if you're driving down a old abandoned road out in Jamestown and there's a handkerchief hanging out the window, don't stop and knock on the car because old Joyce is busy.
I was gonna say, is this a sex thing? It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But no, I don't know if they did. Maybe
Yeah.
like
I think that's great.
If I don't know, I just never paid attention to it. And like that thing, how you talk about like the trust, like Megan's hot, and I know how dudes are because I'm a dude, and yeah, I'm sure a bunch of people want to like sleep with her and stuff, but that don't matter because
Well, and there's two types of
I
trust.
trust her that she loves me, so it's like I
That's
don't
right.
care. I
'Cause
can't.
There's two types of trust. Trust that she'd never do any of that, and then the trust that her and I have is that we'll just never tell you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The end result's the same because you never know otherwise.
Right. And some things are better left unknown.
That's right. We ain't trying to cause harm, so I trust that she gonna keep our secret.
And it's weird because I keep finding these like really long hairs, and I'm like, you cut your hair a long time ago, but like these things are like
So
that
many
long.
hairs everywhere.
I
But it is interesting. I ask all the time, like, who decided that like tattoo artists get this like rock star complex? Because that's
Well,
kind of what it is. So like, where did that
Right.
come
Thank
from?
you
Like
for
cool
bringing
guy.
that up because this gal keeps me humble. I don't even really. I'd like to say I don't even need it, but
No, you
she
don't.
is anything that we were taught.
Well, that was the most humble thing I've ever heard you say.
Yeah, see that? Man, Mike's got so much editing to do today. Yeah, that's right. We'll save that for a whole episode on its own. I don't even need Hip or Josh here for that one. Shit, now I forget what I was gonna say.
Oh, the rock star complex
Yeah.
with
Because she
or
ain't
even-
impressed.
maybe not.
Like all the shit that I would normally do, that even peacocking my feathers. Like I'm gonna do this, be this, wear this, win this, accomplish this to impress her. She's like, don't fucking need. It don't matter what accolades. I could go win best of show 6 years in a row at the Massachusetts Tattoo Convention because I did. She don't give a fuck.
Oh,
You
I
know,
don't. That's
I'm not saying
true.
she'll
I
give a fuck.
do. It just doesn't make me like you more or think anything more of you. I'm just proud of you, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't need you to win trophies. I don't need you to like do and be these things. So like,
Right. And even early on, I couldn't believe it, but she was also a gal that's not even into looks. Like, she's
Obviously.
truly, I know. She's truly into me. Like, but it wouldn't matter if I weighed 500 pounds. Like, where most people will have some sort of line of what's might be physically attractive to them, but that was like so low on her radar. And a big thing that's high for her is a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
And we don't have the same sense of humor. So all the odds were against me. Anything in my arsenal that I thought was cool to show off, to make me seem impressive, didn't count in her book. And I'm not the funny guy. So I really felt like the odds were against me.
they weren't. And it was just different. It was like, okay, the things I usually am drawn to, like you have them, but they're packaged differently, right?
Yeah.
And like, and you come across very passionate. So like the first night we met was for business.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing like muraling and like faux painting, and Matt used to do that before he was tattooing. So our friend Josh, who was working with Matt at the time, I don't even remember. I don't think you ever told me what that conversation actually was, but Josh basically was like, hey, I have a friend that does that. So we met for business for the first time, and he was so serious, right? And I was so nervous. And that kept up for a while, just that kind of passionate, serious side. and I wasn't sure that like that was my type, right?
Right.
And like it wasn't until we were walking around one night and he looked into this like old historic building and it had like triple pane glass, and he like really bumped his head on the glass, like crashed it into it. And that was my first time seeing him
The other foot.
foot,
Okay.
and I was like, oh, I have got a crush on this guy.
This whole time I was
So the
trying to-
presentation thing's been it's been even worse than when I knew you.
Oh yeah.
I think you were probably nervous, and like we were.
But
like,
yeah, and I was all about presentation and presenting my best self, my most impressive self, which
Yeah.
was almost a turnoff to her.
and that
and-
was you. Like you
And
are
that
those
was me,
things. Yeah.
but it wasn't till I like tripped and fell, bashed my head on the window because it was triple window, and I was looking in. I didn't
it
see
was
the
really
outer layer.
hard.
I saw the inner, so I thought I had another 6 inches and went in hard. I about broke that glass on my forehead.
like historic lead window.
On our like third date, trying to be cool, which most people would be embarrassed by that, and I probably was too. But I can play whatever.
Yeah.
But it's moments like that where I couldn't have planned it or tried it, and actually had a flub up in my presentation that actually made her like me. It
Yeah.
wasn't all the shit I was trying to do to get her like me. I mean, I used to buy her fresh flowers every week, like send gifts, like none of that shit mattered to her.
It was the gesture was very sweet. I just didn't need it, right? And like, so this idea that this like every time when I would tell people like, oh, I'm seeing this guy, is Matt Clemmer, they'd be like, oh my gosh, Matt Clemmer's this and he's that and he's all these things, and that was just interesting that like to get to see this more humanized side of you, and not that rock star that everyone was trying to tell me that like that you guys could be perceived as. So like, I don't
Which
know.
she'll never see me as that, which is a cool thing. And in the beginning it bummed me out, like she don't see me, the whole world thinks I'm cool except for her. I'll trade it. I'd rather everyone else not think I just want her to think I'm cool.
I think you're cool, just not for
And
those reasons,
that's
right?
Yeah, and that took me a few years to figure out
Yeah.
that I only have to try with her, and I was trying, and she was waiting on me to quit trying,
Yeah.
and the second I did really helped, right?
Yeah, I think it changed. Yeah, it changed everything.
I'll tell you guys, since I'm a man of my inner voice and heed my inner voice. Yes, our first meeting in the flesh together was over business. Because now that I was a tattoo artist, I was getting calls from designers, Columbus, Cincinnati, wanting more mural work done. And I was too busy now tattooing. And I'd heard of a muralist. And so I met her to see if I could introduce her to the designers, give her some mural work, keep the designers happy, be a bridge in the relationship. Everyone wins, right? We planned to meet at a coffee shop. We've never met in the flesh. Don't even know what she looks like. I roll into the coffee shop and she's walking in. I don't even see her face. I just see the back of her head and dead ass. I'm just playing. No, but I just see the back of her walking in, right? Out of nowhere, and my inner voice. Now, guys, mind you, I grew up saying I'd never get married. Definitely would never have kids. And the reason why is I felt called to so much, and I meant to be a free bird and travel the world. And I thought maybe I'd have like an apartment in New York, one in LA, one in London, and I just travel the world and maybe girlfriends in all places. Like I just knew I couldn't just settle down with just one. Wasn't in the cards at this point in my life. I traveled so much. I slept on an air mattress in my home. I didn't have a bed and just a suitcase. And I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, whether it's in the States or me and Kyle Cotterman flying to the London Tattoo Jam, whatever the case may be, right? When I met her, and I just pulled in the parking lot, saw the back of her, my inner voice exploded and said, there she is. But when it said that, it said it to me like, there's your wife. And I about fucking wrecked. Everything changed. I immediately was bummed. Like, no, not now. What the fuck? Wife? I ain't supposed to have one of them. But, when you get those knowings, and it was there she is. There's the woman of your dreams. There's the one. And I didn't really believe in such a thing. And I was at a place in my life where I was fine being solo, packing light and packing free. So to me, this was terrible timing. But I knew it in the spirit. So now this meeting just went from, I'm going to go meet some girl to talk about mural jobs to, I'm about to go apparently meet my wife. I hope she's pretty. I've just seen the back of her head, right?
And it showed. We both were.
I was anointed as fuck. So
he was so professional, and I was like, this guy.
Yeah, to try and hide that, I was extra serious. You know, try and hide that, like, now all of a sudden I'm supposed to be into her. She's supposed to be the love of my life. What the fuck? So I'm all biz, you know, which I think almost was scared her, was a turn off to her. But regardless, amongst our awkwardness, I literally knew I'm now meeting my wife and talking to her. So I was immediately like all in, head over heels in love, and couldn't believe that was happening on the inside of me in nanoseconds.
And meanwhile, your future wife is like, I am done with men. I'm not doing this. I don't want anything to do with it.
Heartbroken, still on paper married. They had been split. You know, she was still broken. So it was terrible timing for her, not only to find the man of her dreams, but she was so like,
I wouldn't know. I said I wouldn't. How do I put that? Like, you could be Matt Clemmer, and I wouldn't have been able to accept it. Like, I was not.
I could have been the best dude in the world, whoever she dreamt of, and it wouldn't have mattered then.
No, it didn't.
You know? Yeah. And at some points, even my own mama was like, she is broken. You need to leave her alone, let her heal, give her time, and if really you're meant to be together, then you'll be brought back together. The problem is, I was already like, I already knew, I was already head over heels in love, felt like she needed me, and I was like, I'm just going to love her through this unconditionally, which took a strong man and caused unnecessary damage with both of us because it developed insecurities in me, but also was, you know, preventing her to heal properly. You know, and so in the beginning we had some fuck ups, and we made it through.
It was worth it. Like, looking back, like, it's definitely clumsy times. But everyone kept telling me he's this, like, you know, this rock star type guy, and I wasn't interested in that side of him. At all.
Which was great for me. It had me, because I thought that was what the world wanted. You know, and the one I wanted didn't want that and didn't need it, and it caused me to be like, oh well, fuck, you know. And it took me years to let that go, which was huge. Fast forward to today, 13 years later, we're happily married. I'm so fucking happily married with 3 children. You know, and it's just been absolutely mind-blowing, amazing. And you know, I feel like I can speak for her too, that we are more in love now than we ever have been. You know,
we look at you like, how does that happen? Right? But I think maybe too, because we started out so rough, and it was like constantly, I'm on this page, you're on the other page, and it's been
she
cool.
is not. She challenges me with everything. She's not like a yes person in my life, which I used to translate as, she don't see me, she ain't supporting, I gotta fucking sell myself to her again every day. Like, honey, why won't you just, when I say, here's the vision, here's what I'm doing, that she's not instantly like, fuck yeah, go get him, honey.
Because you're that way for me.
She would see all the holes and question and check me, you know what I'm saying, question my why, question my message, debate me on shit, and that used to bother me. But it's caused me to be the best that I can be, because she checks me all the fucking way through, right? She challenges me instead of just being like, you're great, honey, go do it. She'll be like, I don't know, why are you doing that?
It's situational,
you know,
for sure. But
well, and I just love that though, because you know, if people do think I'm a rock star, or most people would maybe think like, if you're my wife, you're just like, go get him, honey, we all believe in you, you know. And even though she is that person, she couldn't be more, you know, she'll check me and call my bullshit like that, won't you, honey?
I think like when you're with someone and you're partnering up, like, especially someone like you, who I think there's a lot of misconceptions about like who you actually are, how you actually are. And so I'm protective of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts at home. I'm protective of him. And I want you to be prepared. And I want to know that you've thought things through. And we had a friend once tell us that like Matt's a kite and I'm a string.
Or you're the anchor.
Which anchor,
okay.
And so like every kite, like if the kite doesn't have the tail or the string, like it's just gonna like go, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's the string's job, right, to have enough slack so that the kite can kind of fly, right?
Yeah.
So that's like our roles with each other. Like I know he's the kind of guy that needs to go out and be free and do and not be tethered down too tight. But
Have you guys ever reversed roles before?
am I a kite?
Fuck no, but we've argued. Like, hey, it's time to fly. Let the anchor up. It's time to get going. Like, I know you're my anchor and you'll keep me grounded, but it's knowing when and when not. Right now, it's time for us to fly. Fucking let the anchor up. Or there'd be times where I'd be trying to fly and she'd be like, no, idiot, quit it. And like anchor me down. And I'd just be like, you know. And eventually, whatever she foresaw, I was like, okay, thank God I was tied down. I had fucked it all up, you know. So we've had to find our footing and trust one another.
Yeah, and that pull really comes from just asking questions, right? Like it's just that little security that then he can even give me that I know that he knows what he's doing. That definitely helps.
But it is, go ahead.
But for me, like, what was it recently? I was like, I want to go do, I couldn't even finish the sentence. I was like, I want to go do, and he was like, go do it. Like, that's the person you are for me.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to hear. He doesn't question.
If she starts to ask me for anything, I don't even let her finish her sentence, and I already tell her yes. Because I believe in her. I trust her so much, or whatever her heart desires. So it's a mission, goal, a gift, anything. If she wants something, and I know she's asking, I always cut her off and say yes. And then now I'm going to find out what I just said yes to, but I didn't need to hear it before I say yes. Like with her, there's so much all in. The answer is always yes. If she wants to do something, fucking do it, you know?
Yeah. Like, I'm less of a wild card.
She feels like it's a safer bet to do that.
So like
with her.
what I wanted to do was like go to Harry Potter World by myself.
Yeah.
What you want to do is like
Change
drop
the
our
world.
savings on like
crypto.
Like,
You never smoked weed, have you?
no.
That's fucking crazy.
I've never been drunk. I've never done drugs. So like it's been like we are opposites in almost every way, which like I think for a while we were like, is this okay? Should we have more in
we have
common?
Anything in common?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
She used to pull me aside, and she'd even print off like questions and shit for us to try and find something we have in common, like for years.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, let's make these like vision boards. He's real into vision boards, right? So I'm like, vision board. Mine had like places I want to visit and like just like fun side goals. And so then we reveal our vision board to each other, and Matt's is all business, and I'm like, but like I want to like learn. Like, do you want to travel? Do you want to like go?
She's like, I was talking about us and our future. Mine's all business goals. Didn't even have shit to do of her on it.
Nothing.
And all her vision board
nothing.
is like family stuff and dream places for us to go and visit and weekend getaways together. And I'm thinking, I got to make all this money first so we can do that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But even then we realized like we have nothing in common, or it felt like that.
Yeah, it could, but obviously that wasn't true. Like the things that matter, we do have in common. And so like me being sick right now, we've been forced to decide like what matters. And so we've been really practiced at that, over the last few years of what matters.
What's your biggest revelation you've learned since going inward and being in your head all the time?
Probably just how free we are and how safe we are, how connected we are.
You say we are we talking home base?
All of us.
Okay.
Like,
fuck yeah.
And I don't want to get too heady and weird because it's gotten heady and weird, and like it's gotten weird for me because I don't usually like think too abstractly, right? But like for me, it was like just this understanding that there's nothing that can separate us. Like there's no small lives, big lives. mean, it was constant. Do you remember like the diatribe I sent you that one day? That long text?
Yeah.
I was listening to the podcast about, what was it? Do you remember?
Imposter Syndrome.
Imposter Syndrome, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like laying in bed and I'm listening to you talk. And all of a sudden I just like get downloaded with all this stuff and I unsolicitedly text him this like long paragraph of just stuff that was just like hitting me about like there's no arrival point. There's nothing you can do. There's no award you can get. There's no like tattoo that you'll do good enough that will make you any better than you are. You like just understanding inherently how amazing we all are just as like, you know, as humans. And so it's just this understanding of things being taken away from me. Like I can't hold a paintbrush right now. So my work, you know, I do freelance illustrations and I had to, you know, email this company that I work for and have these conversations. And so like these things we make mean a lot about ourselves, right? These titles, rock star, trophies, things, they can feel good, right? And they can make yourself proud, but like there's no arrival point, right? Like there's no separating yourself from yourself. There's nothing you can do that will separate you from anyone else. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
Totally.
that's just kind of like, I just kept getting that like, oh, like nothing matters in a beautiful way. Like we can just be free and like, oh, you want to win a trophy, go win that trophy. But it doesn't have to mean anything other than that was a goal of yours, right? And like I've like gained and lost and gained like 60 pounds over the past few years. Like when my sister was sick and before she died, like gained so much weight and then lost it when Matt and I got married, then gained it back. And like, and I had just like gotten back to a healthy weight when I got sick again. And so start thinking about like, does my weight matter to me or does it matter what I think other people think, right? Like,
Which one is it?
I think it has to matter to me, right? Like I was thinking, and I don't know if this might be too morbid of a story to tell, but I was thinking the other day when my sister died, we had open casket viewing, right? And I don't know how heavy I was at the time. Doesn't matter, but I was so angry at myself for caring how I looked. I was really worried and kind of like embarrassed that I was going to be seeing people that I hadn't seen in a really long time and they hadn't seen me heavy, right? And so we like were shopping for, it was summertime and we're shopping for dresses that like covered our arm fat and like hid my belly and like I just wanted to not think about it, right? I just wanted to be comfortable and just not have to worry about my weight, right?
Sometimes I do that in hoodie weather.
Just like hide it, right?
Yep.
So I don't have to think about it. And so I'm standing next to my sister's casket and we're in the receiving line and all these people are coming through and I can honestly say I had forgotten that I was fat.
Yeah.
And then one of my mom's friends from church came through. I could see it on her face,
bitch.
right? I saw it on her face and she looked down at my stomach and she looked back up at me and I was like, shoot, she sees it, right? Like I could hide it. Like it was all, you know, I was fat and that's okay, right? Like,
Did she say something about you being fat?
she said something. I thought there's no way she's going to say something. My dead sister is like right here. I had my hand on Robin's forehead, like, and she comes up to me and I'm like, I was just in my head because I knew she saw, like she noticed, right? And she just looked at me. She was like, you look good. I'm like, why is she saying this? No condolences, no like story about Robin. And then she cups my face and is like, your face is so full. And I felt my hand like slide off of Robin's forehead and like grab my stomach, right? And then like I kind of turned my body away and like waited for her to leave. And I was just like, my face was burning. Like I was so embarrassed. And I spent the rest of that viewing tugging at
Focused on self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought about that this week because I've gained just a little bit back, not enough. Like I've just like, well, it doesn't matter. Like I'm in the season of my life. Like, but then I thought like my weight mattered to that woman. Like it mattered to her enough to tell me I was fat with my like my dead sister right there. It was just really interesting. So I was kind of like processing that this week. Like, what matters to people about us and what should matter about us and what really doesn't, right?
And even with that interaction, that could have been her insecurities of how she looked projecting onto you to make herself feel better.
Yeah.
Because we're self-centered, and well, I'm very self-centered, but it's just a human condition sometimes, and we get lost in it.
I don't know if she like, you know, I like to rationalize a lot. I know Matt hates that because I'm like, oh, they're just this, or oh, it's just that, right? And so with this, I'm like, okay, she just was really awkward. Like, people are awkward about death, but and then I'm like, nope, actually, that was just like a really really awful thing to do. But the thing is, it wasn't a catalyst for anything. It didn't make me want to lose weight. It also didn't make me want to eat anything either. You know, like, you're kind of at that crossroads when you're like in your feelings about that kind of stuff. You're like, I'm either going to go binge or I'm going to like show her, right? And it didn't. I just remember just feeling kind of sad, right? And that's what I've been left with lately, is just processing what matters and what doesn't. And so like, my weight can matter to me. Like, I want to be healthy. I want to feel good, right? But if things fluctuate, like, I can't worry about what people think, right? Same with my work. Like, am I more than my work? Are you guys more than like the work you're putting out? Like, if your hands are broken, like, what if you can't tattoo anymore, right?
I don't
like,
even, my sponsors asked me that before, and I don't even like to look at it because like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I don't want to be more than just a tattoo. I just want to be a tattooer. Like,
you are more as a person,
yeah, and
right?
like, you can't really, like, I'm a heart that beats. I'm a mind that thinks. Like, I'm more than actually tattooing. I'm a dad. I'm a friend. So automatically there's things just by default that are, you're more than these labels that people give us.
Right. Or that we give ourselves and make it mean something.
Right.
And it doesn't have to mean anything more than, it's just so cool. You guys are tattoo artists. Like, you feel driven to do that, and you feel driven to be one of the best and like practice your craft, and like, I think that's beautiful, right? And so I'm just getting these understandings of,
but
like,
why is what she's getting to,
why?
and what the fuck do you think that means about you, do or don't? Like, because when we don't, it's one thing that what just happened. You didn't win the trophy you were trying to, but we take it a step further and make that mean all kinds of shit that don't mean that at all, you know? And I think that's one of the hugest gifts that we've been forced to partake of, or been served up to us. And I've watched her lose attachments and meanings and half the shit that we used to that mattered, this happening or didn't happen, they said this or didn't say that, and we get worked up and it means this and that fucking and I've just watched her just get so freed up to where, like, none of it matters. That don't even fucking matter. It don't even mean shit. That don't matter. Like, it don't even matter. But not in a defeated way, you know?
In a freeing way. Like, it can feel really good and you can feel proud about things, but like, won't make you better than anybody. It won't bring you to some arrival point. And that's just, kind of what I keep being left with of, and again, that like letting go of expectations and, working hard, practicing, like being driven, but not feeling that compulsion to do that to be better or try to compete or like, that kind of stuff. I'm just getting this freedom of like, oh, there's no point in any of that, right?
Now, when do those thoughts ever come back and then like subconsciously, and then like you catch yourself like thinking in old ways of being, and then like you have to like in the present moment like send that shit back to the sin, return to sender.
Because even like,
okay, cool, because I'm asking that for relatability, because I'm like, damn it, if she's got to this point now, I'm making it mean shit, and I'm like, if she don't have these problems, then I just ain't there yet.
And I have those problems. I'm just getting these understandings like, it's going to be a practice, right? Like of constantly checking, like, why are we doing these things? And like, do I really want this? Or do I care what people, like what it makes me look like?
And
like,
even sharing her opinions now. Cause you know,
Yeah,
she was a pretty opiniated gal.
to you.
To me. Yeah, not the world. She wouldn't get on Facebook and be like, hey, let me
No.
tell you what I think, right? But
Why not?
she really was opinionated and would like put people in categories where like we all do it, right? Like, you know, certain types we can.
Oh yeah,
you know.
even the first night I met him, or the phone call I got from him, instantly when I hung up, I got on MySpace. It was MySpace at the time, and like, you know, searched his name, and by just seeing his profile picture, and I saw his dreads, and I instantly was like, okay, he's this, he's this, he's this.
Had me all pegged wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But just because of my look, she thought like, yeah, I'm into like new metal and.
Yeah, which is fine, but like, yeah, I was
But
like,
it just
oh.
isn't.
I
wasn't
totally
true.
like pigeonholed him, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I think. Do we all do that? I was gonna say we all do, but
Well,
maybe we don't.
The
maybe.
growth I've seen in her,
Yeah.
she's checking herself on her opinions, like whether on anything, and I see her, she's checking her own language, and she'll check herself, like again that practice, because she's got new revelations, a new way of being, but the old way of being, the habits, the learned behavior and patterns that she's had for 30 plus years, now all of a sudden it's being undone. So I see her in the practice, so her old way of being will come up, and she'll start to share an opinion that almost now she views as could be construed as a form of judgment.
Yeah,
Right.
it feels
And she's
judgmental
stopping
now.
herself.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, that don't even fucking matter anymore, like never
Like,
mind.
oh, I'm not cooler than anyone for liking this band, or like
Right.
thinking this style of thing. You know, like we make these things like mean something about us, right? And like, I don't know, that kind of stuff's important. These subcultures that we can be a part of. Like,
And she, for me, she was
Yeah.
big in it. I used to call her like snob,
call me a snob.
like the biggest snob I knew. You know,
but it was
she
like I was a secret snob.
a
Like,
secret snob.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know, and I've watched her like let go of that. Like it don't even fucking matter no more. I used to be highly opinionated about this or snobby about this, and now she don't even give a fuck. Like there's a freedom there.
Yeah,
you
just
know?
and it is a practice, because like we'll go to like make fun of certain kind of music or something, and I'll stop myself and be like, well, you know, it makes somebody happy, that's cool. And so it's just this constant understanding and practice of like, why am I doing this? Does this mean anything? Does this make it like mean anything about me? And I kind of just have boiled everything down to like being kind, being generous, being giving. Like those things matter about us, right? Everything else is details and experience and choices, but like what matters about us is very little and pretty simple. And everything else, like, you know, I could go work fast food right now, and it doesn't mean that I'm living some small life if that's what really makes me happy, and like I'm caring for everyone around me, like, you know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff I've been kind of getting hit with, that it doesn't matter.
And when she says hit with, and to me this has been the miracle within the miracle, you know, and forgive me for lack of language. Just to make my point, I'm going to use the term God, right? That can mean source to you. It can mean universe, right? But just for communication purposes right now, the amount of awareness I've seen her become, that has been revealed to her, the amount of things that have been illuminated to her, you would think, since her body's been on lockdown for 7 months, that she has been devouring book after book, podcast after podcast of self-help, of spiritual guides, like you name it. The shit that has been downloaded in her, that has come out of her, you would think she's just been feeding her soul and her mind with this shit, and now it's coming
the
out.
opposite. I was like, I'm gonna sit in this abyss. I'm angry. I'm really angry that this is happening. We don't know what's going on. I don't know how much longer this is going to last. And I felt really angry. And I think the key, though, because we were talking about this the other night on your TBM class, and there was another student that realized he was angry too. And I so wish I would have told him, like, I think the difference is in the listening. Right? Because there's a difference between sitting in an abyss and being angry and kind of like yelling into the wind the whole time, right? But for some reason, I just felt like, I'm not going to fight this. I'm going to just sit and listen. And I don't know that I've ever done that before. Just really,
well, it's being
listen.
the observer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what that means. And like, I'm sure it was going to look different to everybody, but I think I just was almost like quieting my mind, quieting my own judgments, stopping making anything mean anything. And that had been a practice from when my sister died. Like, I remember hearing like someone, I think it was like Duncan Trussell. Do you guys know Duncan Trussell? He has a podcast. It's amazing, and it's about existential like type stuff, and he's a comedian, and so it's really funny. But he was interviewing someone, and they were talking, and then they both stopped. They're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter." And then it hit me. I'm like, oh, doesn't matter. And that was years ago, right?
Yeah.
So
the seed was planted then.
The seed was planted then. And so just that quieting of self and just like, I'm just going to stay open.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like. And the minute I did, it was like, I don't know. It was wild.
Yeah. And it hasn't stopped.
No.
But
to your point, I'm sorry. To your point, though, I wrote down notes in my phone. I still have to reread it because I've already, I see it kind of slipping away. And I told Matt, I'm like, I feel like I'm going to have a lot of opinions right now and a lot of things I want to tell you. But then I feel like I'm going to pull back and just go into a period of my life where I'm just going to be like a really good listener. And so I'm kind of like curious what that's going to look like for me, just to be that person in the room that's like, and be a listener. So, but I already forget things.
It's like a catch-22 because I think it's Buddha that says to label me is to limit me, but also to label me is to create me. Yeah. So it's like this type of shit reminds me of jazz. I used to study jazz. And the thing with jazz is you can't ever learn all music theory. Like it just goes and goes and it's almost infinity. Yeah. But there's a certain point when you realize that none of it even matters and you just do what you want to do anyway.
Right?
And
no rules.
But to even get to that point, you have to learn the structure of why it's even like that to even get to that point. Yeah. But then you've got some people, some punk bands and shit that just picked up a guitar in their garage and started jamming and make killer songs and are like super rock stars. Some even more well-known than jazz artists. Yeah. But I was it goes back to how we were first talking about dotting the T's and crossing the I's. I had to know why. I tried to do classical, but there was too much structure in it for me. It was more authoritative, where jazz was just learn this to figure out why it doesn't even fucking matter.
Yeah, it's emotional.
Yeah, and then you get all this stuff downloaded and you learn that opinions don't matter. Even things that we say are factual are not even factual. They're just agreements. Just a bunch of people was yeah, we can agree that we'll call this glasses. These are sunglasses. Well, why? Are they sunglasses? No, because it doesn't even matter. They don't even really exist. We just agreed that we're going to call those sunglasses simply so if I ask...
Social contract.
Right, yeah. It's I've heard it put as when I cross over into Indiana, there's, if you're from if you're up there with Elon Musk looking down, you're not going to see a border where Indiana and Ohio is. Yeah. We've just agreed that that's where it's at. Yeah. So it's that's...
Well, and we're going in and out of states of beings, right? And if you think, if you and I left Chicago and we're in Illinois and we're headed to Ohio, we drive through the state of Indiana. And once we get through Indiana and into Ohio, it doesn't mean that Indiana doesn't exist no more. That's a state that's still there. We're not in it no more. But it's still there, right? Mm-hmm. So we all go in and out of different states of beings, but it doesn't mean that that state doesn't still exist and that someone else we know is still in that state, even though we're in a different state of being, right? Mm-hmm. And go ahead, baby.
No, I just what keeps coming up in my mind is that things can matter to us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They don't have to matter about us. Right? So things can matter to us. Your career can matter to you, but it doesn't have to matter about you. If it was taken away, are you still hip? Are you still this amazing, giving, hilarious, loving guy? Yeah. We can choose. We all choose what matters to us. Yeah. And we also get to choose what matters about us. Now, we can't do that externally, obviously, with, the lady in my weight, but I then can control how that, makes me feel. And so I just keep getting that, like, things matter to us, but not about us.
Right, because even one of our students on TBM, after he like witnessed what we're going through, he was also like, man, all my perceived big problems ain't shit now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I realize I've been turning my molehills into mountains. But what did you tell him?
Oh, his molehills matter. Like, what my brother-in-law sent a quote to us that, like, you had heard the first part of, right? Like, what you resist persists.
That's all I've ever heard. There's a whole second half to that quote that I never heard.
And it was what you embrace dissolves. And the two are together. What you resist persists. What you embrace dissolves. And that, like, I'm like, that's exactly what's been happening. Like, for me, just acceptance and that listening, it dissolved these cages that I could have put myself in, right? And so even like when you have your little molehills, like,
they matter.
Mm-hmm. They have to matter so you can process and they can dissolve, because those molehills might become mountains if you sandbag them away and don't
try and resist them, fight them,
or like, I'm not bad, or I'm not. Yeah, there's something really powerful about just like looking at what is, not being afraid to look at it. And that's kind of what we've been forced to do, and like just really look at it, and we're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's pretty freeing. We get to choose what matters to us.
And seeing from being on the outside looking in, everybody could be like, oh, look at her, she's twitching, she can't drive, her life's not fucking normal, oh, it's gotta suck, which I'm even sure you've been through that.
Oh, I still feel that way.
Well,
I'm a pretty independent person, and it's been humbling.
So it seems to, like, the more I see and are witness to, it's more of a strength. Like, this is becoming your strength. This is your superpower. When I first was calling myself an addict, I hated that, and like the stereotypes of it and the stigmas that came along with it. But like, the more I've embraced it, the more it's like, I'm a fucking superhuman. Like, I got superpowers. Like, I embrace it. And like Josh with his cancer, like, that's just made that motherfucker a machine.
There's a thing called ego death, and if you kind of research ego death, it's like this decentering of self. You kind of understand your own, like, I'm gonna say insignificance, but it's not. It's just understanding how you can't be separated from each other. And but if you look up ego death, there's this thing called the hero's journey. Are you guys familiar with that at all? It's like in action movies, the hero goes through this ego death. So at the beginning of the movie, he like has it all figured out and he's on top of things, and then something happens. Something causes him to lose faith, right? Like, he either caused something bad to happen, someone he loves died. Like, there's always something in the middle of the movie that brings the hero to this ego death, and you're not sure if he's gonna come out of it, right? And then go like circular, right? So he's here, now he's in the ego death, and then there's like this rebirth, and he comes back like better, and usually with a whole new understanding of himself. He's usually not alone, right? Like, he or she, they've got people with them. Now they understand that ego death caused them to see how wrong they were the whole time and how simple it actually is, and they're pulling people with them and they win, so it's like this, the hero's journey.
Well, it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, when Frodo was like, had been given the task to like take the ring, and he was like, nah, I'm just like this little hobbit, dude, I can't. And like, they almost like repel it, but then they embrace it, and like the dissolving is like the lack, the worry that they're not good enough. And then they become the hero.
And it's usually not the way they fought.
Right, and I'm sure I've seen like one couple little snips of a Harry Potter. I'm sorry, don't shoot me.
But we need to binge them together.
Didn't Harry Potter, like, wasn't he like went through the same things?
And that it was like he had to have a rebirth also. Like, he had to sacrifice himself, and
this woman is so independent. She kept her own last name when we got married. She's so independent. The number one thing that recharges and fuels her is her alone time, right? To be able to get in the car and fucking just go and drive anywhere. She's always been independent. Yes, we're married. Yes, she's a mama. but she handles her own on her own. Like even how like I can love her and support her took years to figure out because she's so hands-on. I'll do this myself, right?
Yeah, which isn't good, right?
But it's all been stripped from her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can't really do
which has just
right
been
now.
levels of terrible, right? Let alone her own physical health, let alone her not being able to do the mama doing anything. She's an amazing artist, a painter. She used to be a huge fucking blogger. I mean, millions of readers. You know, the list just goes on. Just how talented, amazing she is. It's all been taken. It's all been stripped.
That was a slow process, though.
Yeah. But most unpleasant things we have to endure in life, we're able to give ourselves light at the end of the tunnel. If you're on a bad roller coaster ride, if you're sitting in a bad movie, if you're on a bad acid trip, if you're on a bad date, whatever, most things you can tell your brain, just hang on, this ride will be over soon. Just hang on, this shit will wear off. Just hang on, I get through this
Or
date,
you can leave.
Huh?
Or you can just get up and leave the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She doesn't have, she's got to sit through it.
We have not been given any of that. We haven't, there's no exit, nor is there anyone saying this ride's going to be over, right? Because in the beginning it was like, let's weather this storm, let's get her help. Once this is over, we can get back to living again. That day never fucking came. 7 months later, we're still sitting here. We have been forced to choose how to live again in the midst of this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And when I'm having an attack, like the cataplexy attacks, like my whole body is paralyzed. You know, my mouth will hang open and I can't, my eyes shut, but I'm fully present in my head. And it's a really kind of scary place to be sometimes, where you don't know how long they're going to last.
Like you're battling having one right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just going to fight it when I can, because I can a little bit. But to your point, yeah, like it's become this really great source of strength, but not because I like made it. Right. I don't know. I can't explain it. I joke because, like, you know, Matt's really big on water and herbs and holistic stuff, and I'm like, I want Taco Bell, and I want, you know, like, we're even different in that way. And so I was laughing to him, like, I couldn't remember the last time I had drank a glass of water, and I was having all these, like, you know, really amazing, comforting thoughts. And I just thought, like, how cool is that you can be so imperfect and you can be sitting in this bad place, and you can still have growth. And I don't know,
like exponential, meaning even again back to, she wasn't doing any of the things that we're taught to, like, if you want to like be enlightened, start doing these things. She's like to all of them.
The opposite.
And that's why I just love, like, God, source of the universe, still has been showing up to reveal and illuminate and reveal himself, reveal like the mysteries. She has walked away daily more enlightened, getting these downloads, but it's not because she's like been doing all the things, drinking water, reading books, listening to seeking. The fact that she just, like, in the abyss, in the darkest of dark places, went from trying to fucking hang on and control to just relinquishing and surrendering and letting go. And that's when the floodgates came, you know?
Yeah, it's wild to feel freedom when I have no control over my body and feel trapped in my body most days. It's the wildest kind of
freedom,
juxtaposition. How do I have
in the midst of being bound up,
freedom?
She's freed up in bound up in chains, but internally fucking freer than ever. It's been mind-blowing.
Yeah, and not because I like willed it or tried it. And
no.
You have been standing for that for me. Hip texts me nearly every day since this started that I'm whole and healthy and thriving. And I thought that I couldn't really receive that until I was like past Katie, whole, healthy, and thriving. And I look at your texts when you send them now differently. And I can agree to them because it looks different now. Like, I don't need the control over my body now to feel healthy, because I feel like spiritually I feel like healthier than ever, and emotionally maybe healthier than ever. And so just it's interesting how I thought I couldn't receive that till it looked like old Katie. And now I'm like, oh no, it's like, you know, I am those things, even though it may not look like the way that we all thought it would be. And I won't always have this, like we're on a medication plan, and we're hoping because it's COVID related that it could eventually go away. So, we have things to be hopeful about. But
She's embraced it, so now it's starting to dissolve.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder, like, you ever remember the Looney Tunes cartoons when, like, one of the characters would get hit real hard in his head?
Sorry.
And they would, like, have amnesia, and then they would just sneak up behind him and hit him in the head again, and then he'd remember everything. I just wonder if she got COVID again, if it would, like, reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Yeah, I even got my like vaccine booster because there was like some studies that if you got the booster or you got your second, I already had my double vaccine like April and May before I got sick, but I was hoping maybe the booster would help, and it didn't. But yeah.
Maybe you should try weed now.
Give it a try. I mean, honestly,
Go upstairs and polish off a bottle of Wild Turkey.
New Katie. Brand new Katie.
When she gets shit-faced drunk, she's like completely normal, and then as the alcohol wears off, she just goes back to...
Well, my baseline is like pretty peppy, and it's kind of, it's annoying to me because like this is how I am, even, like when I'm not trying. Like,
she's the type that can go to the party and everyone else needs drinking and drugs to like have a good time, but she's just naturally that way.
Yeah.
I remember going through a drive-through once, and I probably gone through several times that week. And when I pulled through, the woman was like, "Oh, I recognized your voice." And
She's in the Taco Bell drive-through.
Yeah. And I was so bummed. I'm like, dang it. And she was like, "You're just so happy." No one's happy when they're ordering Taco Bell.
She's like, yeah.
So it's like my baseline is like this. So
Yeah.
I always laugh at it. If I ever did get like super drunk, I'd be like mean, mean Katie would come out.
I want to see it.
Right.
Just kidding. No.
Yeah. No, I'm just kind of like, okay, what's next? I don't know, but I know what matters, and I know what
don't.
What don't.
Man.
Doesn't. Yeah. I know these things.
God.
I feel them. Yeah.
You were touching on something when you were, what was being downloaded, and you listened to our Imposter Syndrome, and like I think she, she's protective of you too, Hip, and you putting that pressure on yourself to level up, and she's like, what the fuck? He can't get to the next level because he's already there. He just don't know it yet, right? Like, and trying to take away.
There's nothing up there. It's a ladder to nowhere. Like, you're competing against yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. And so what that reminded me of is because so oftentimes when we're growing, we're looking externally. Like, here's the goal. I'm here. I want to get there. And obviously we teach our students to do that in tangible ways in business and, But ancient scripture, Paul talks about awakening to your true identity, right? Not trying to become this great person that, God made you to be. It's realizing that you always have been, you already are, and you get to just awaken to your true identity, to your true reality. Awaken to your true identity versus work hard to try and receive it and become it and build it and believe it and work towards it and get better.
And not appreciate what you're putting out in the present, because it's not quite, up to that person's caliber. Or it's not up to, I think we can have goals and you can want to be better, right? Like, you probably always want to top yourself, right?
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you have that in you as well. And I think that's beautiful, that drive. It's just understanding why, right? And where is that coming from?
And in that process, it's not us trying to find our superpower and develop it. Out here, it's awakening to what's already in you, like the greatest version of you that you can imagine. Her point is you're already that person. You're just in the process of waking up to that reality.
Yeah, and growing into it.
And growing into it, find your superpowers and learning how to use it. But you're not trying to obtain it. You already got it. Now it's just awakening to that factor.
And you guys know probably you put people on pedestals. And then when you actually know them, you see they're just as neurotic, just as maybe not unhappy with their work, but
they're
like
flawed
critical.
too, or
Yeah. And so, and then people could be putting you guys on pedestals, and so just that sense of there are no pedestals, there's no arrival point. You do what feels good to you. You have your drive, you have your goals. Those can matter to you. They just don't have to matter about you.
Man, that's good, Mama. That's good.
It's something to think about anyways. I'm just staying curious about it. Like, I don't know what that looks like for me or for any of us, but if anyone's like feeling like they have to get to this point, or there's something wrong if you're done leveling up and you're just really comfortable and you love your life, like there's nothing wrong with that in my book. Like if you're happy and you're
That's right.
taking care of your life and your business,
You've won.
You've won.
Yeah.
And if you want more, great, but you don't have to have more, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean anything if you do.
That's right. You just can't work
no big
here at
lives,
aisle 9
no
no more.
small lives.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
That's my perspective on it, and
Jesus.
and maybe that can help one of you guys, that like if you're feeling like the only way to be successful is to keep hustling and driving and you don't really want to, and you're really happy with where you're at, then like I think the goal, we should recheck our goals, and our goals should be contentment, right? And not stay in a place and be stagnant, but just be content for a second. Like, are you content? Like, do you see how much you've grown, like your work, and either of you, like, have you really stopped and like been proud of yourselves? Hopefully.
Yeah, but it's a process.
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't come naturally, but maybe just be like, hey, like
this podcast, it ain't shit till we get 10,000 subscribers.
right.
I'm just kidding.
You know.
Do you mind, honey, to your best ability, to share with our listeners your physical example of some of the stuff we've been learning, what you've been going through, and your physical analogy with your hands?
Yeah. It was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we were in the car, and I just kept opening my palms up to Matt with my fingers kind of held open, and I kept going like, I just keep feeling like this, and I'd hold my palms up and open, like accepting something, right? And I was like, I don't know what this means. Does this mean anything to you? And then I'm like, I think I just am imagining water or sand just kind of like rolling, like hitting my palm and just kind of like falling through my fingers, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? And I was like, okay, like I've gone through my life holding on really tight. I have really high expectations for myself, and I'm like a visual person, right? I think probably a lot of people listening we're artists. So I would imagine the full spectrum of something. If I'm planning a party, it's going to be like this, and this person's going to say this, and they're going to feel like this. And when those things don't happen, you're inevitably disappointed, right? We set up these expectations, and we miss all that beauty. And so visually, I just felt like we're visualizing, or we're worried about the things that slipped through our fingers.
Yes.
And we're not really focusing on what remains in our palm. And so to me now, I just like, when things are stressful or feel heavy, we just kind of hold our palms open to each other, and like, if we not lower expectations, but like just be open to what is possible, what could be, most likely it's going to turn out even cooler, even more wonderful than we could have planned if we were holding so tight. And for me, I held so tight, and like my marriage still ended. My sister still died. You know, like these things, we do this and these things still happen, right? Like they can still happen when we do this too, but I feel like we just like, we rob ourselves. I've been
accepting.
Yeah. Like small, silly example, but our niece got married in September. And, you know, like with weddings, there's all this planning and money and stress.
Big outdoor wedding,
all
beautiful.
Outdoors, yeah. And it poured. It poured.
Like 3 minutes before the ceremony, thunderstorm shows up. And they didn't have a plan B, really. This is an outdoor wedding. They
even called it earlier. Like everyone came early trying to miss the rain.
Yeah, and then the weather changed and met us. You know, we were going to have the wedding 2 hours earlier because rain was coming. They bumped it up. The guests came early. The rain came early too.
Yeah, so they ended up having to get married in the living room of this house.
Yeah.
And my niece is both the couple, like they're amazingly cool and just easygoing. But you could see it was a choice, and like we have to decide, are we devastated or not? And it ended up being the most amazing wedding I've ever been to. There was a heated pool, and half the guests ended up in the pool because we were already soaking wet because of the water.
In our suits and our dresses.
We were all swimming.
I would have continued. I was thinking that. I was like, I would have just stood in the rain beside the dude marrying us.
Yeah.
No, but after people, and it always takes like one person to make the choice, and then someone else follows, and someone else does, and they made the right choice, starting with the wedding party themselves, right?
Yeah.
And of course, our 3-year-old Sybil like helped. She was the first one in the pool.
She got
I was
in
trying to
first.
get her not go in the pool in her dress, and finally it was like, fuck it, I let her go in. And before you know it, it turned into like that scene in A Wonderful Life when the floor opened up and it became a pool, and everyone's in there fine dance and people just start jumping in, and it became one of the funnest weddings ever. But we pivoted.
Yeah,
right?
it was, again, open your hands. And if you could have robbed yourself if, like, especially my sister Angie, who was the mother of the bride, like, she did so much of the planning, and she had every right that her molehills, like, she did so much planning, and she had every right to feel disappointed and how much didn't work out. But they also didn't rob themselves of what was in the palms, and that was like what really mattered, right? Like all those details can matter to us, but they don't matter about us, right? So it could matter to the wedding, but it didn't matter about the wedding. And what we were left with was like, it was just free and fun and love. It just felt so like
such delight.
Yeah. And so that's just like a small example of like just a choice of letting go of expectations, and it is a choice. Like,
and
it's hard.
Even energetically, like most of us try and control, and we're going through the world like this. I'm going to do this and do that, right? And we still realize that control's an illusion.
Yeah.
But even energetically and physically, and all you viewers and listeners, if you just naturally open your hands like this, your fingers are naturally spaced.
Yeah.
They're naturally open to allow what's not meant for you today to fall through. It takes extra strength for you to close your fingers together like this. When you naturally open your hands, none of your hands they won't remain together. You have to work to keep them together. If you just open naturally, they're naturally open and naturally spaced for things to pull through. But if you hold this position, you can feel energy in the palms of your hands.
It's a really freeing feeling, even like if you're not a very woo person, and just holding your hands out like that, it's relaxing. You feel air between your fingers, and you can just like, I don't know, it feels really good. And the understanding too is that good things can slip through. Bad things can stay in the palm, and it's just kind of staying curious, like, okay, what does this mean? And okay, that didn't need to happen. That good thing I wanted to happen, it didn't. But that's okay. Like, it's not all good things can like pull up in our palms either.
And what's a good thing without having some bad things?
Right. And just being like, okay. And I kept telling, like, just the word delight, which I never use that word, but for some reason I kept going like, I delight. We can just be like, oh, that's so cool.
So like right here, even in this moment, like we wanted Mr. Carlton on today, and last minute he wasn't feeling up to it, right? And part of us, we deal with controlling. Should we even podcast today? Should we wait? Blah, blah.
Right. And for me, what are we going to talk about?
Right.
Like,
But we just open our hands, and whatever's meant for us right now in this moment is exactly what's meant for us. And we can delight in that, even though we didn't have control. The control we have is to open ourselves up to all possibility and not try and control or draw conclusions of what we think it's supposed to look like today, and to literally let go and receive. Last week, I get nervous before I take stage, and when I had to go perform, and she reminded me, because I was all worked up, I want to do a good job, all that, and she just reminded me, to just let go of it all and to delight in what does show up in this moment. That's what's meant for me right now. Right now, the three of us are talking in this moment. And instead of me being bummed of how it didn't work out how we planned, we can delight in the plan that's unfolding in this present moment. And there's so much in the palm of the hand. That's what she was saying. We go through life robbing ourselves of what is, because we're attached to what isn't, right? This is also why we talk about living in the question, but to not try and be the answer, to allow the answer that we couldn't even think of to show up. but to not block us out of possibility.
But you still have to show up, right? You still have to try. You still have to do these things. It's just not being so attached. Like me, I was building whole worlds in my head of how things were going to work out, and would inevitably be disappointed for myself, right?
Like all the
It's
time.
like constantly setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And so it's important to work hard and do these things and show up. Like we still showed up today, right? But letting go of, I guess, unhealthy expectations or just
And
not being
outcomes
open.
or-
Being closed off to something else being cool enough to happen, and being enough.
Yes, and you are enough. We are enough. And even in this moment, like, because we decided we're going to podcast, not knowing if we were going to keep this episode, really share it or not, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, if you guys are listening to this episode, we decided to just let go and go ahead and put this episode out, right?
Yeah.
And letting go of what we thought this episode was supposed to be.
Yeah, and if it's for one person, then cool. Yeah.
I love you,
I
honey.
love you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been through a whole lot, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we all have, collectively as like
Mm-hmm.
humans. It's been a really rough few years.
And we're still going through it, aren't we?
Yeah,
The
it's
only
good.
difference,
There's a lot
instead of
going
us
on
being
now.
like, oh,
Yeah.
now we're just like, okay.
Yeah. What's going to happen next? I don't know, but I'm going to show up. And
That's
I'm going to
right.
be a kind person. I'm going to be a loving wife and mother and neighbor. And those are the things we can control, right? And then we can just kind of, you can be the best artist you can be. I don't know. And
Yeah, it's
then-
wild because when we thought we were controlling to have all this stuff, but now that we're like relinquishing, you would think like, okay, I'm just going to accept less. My standards lower. I'm just, instead of
No.
trying, but when you do this, more miraculous shit shows up for you in the palm of your hand than anything you could have carried, cultivated, or created by like trying to.
Right. 'Cause
Have
it's
you noticed
contentment.
that?
I feel like you're just like, there's just more contentment, right? So like there's less disappointment. There's less, I'm not there yet, or that.
But the reason why there's more contentment is because what we have been given is like more than enough. It's
Yeah.
not like we're just like, oh, I'll just take two little
It's a lot
morsels and be
cooler.
content with that. Like
Yeah.
we're full.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so much cooler than I could have planned. I wouldn't have chosen this for us.
Man.
But yeah, it's like, why not?
And talk about crazy questions that we pose, like, is life happening to you or for you or through you, right?
Yeah.
But all this shit, we could be like, why is this happening to us? We were mad about it, angry. You were angry.
Yeah, I was
I
angry.
was
I had
dealing with
just gotten
anger.
a hold of my grief and my health. I was feeling so good.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened. And I don't know that I believe that, like, we're given trials, but
Right.
I was angry. I
Right.
was fully angry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I was okay with that. And I needed to be.
Yeah.
And you were very, like, I'm sure it looked pretty wild there for a little bit. Like, you were very supportive of me just having an angsty period of my life. I'm like, I'm going to shave my head. Like, I'm done, like, taking care of myself. I'll take care of the kids when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of you when I can. But I'm going to shave my head. Like, and say that with, like, a wild look in my
And
eyes.
we were going to do it. Got clippers and everything.
Because it
And-
doesn't matter. I'm like, my hair doesn't matter. It got
Yeah.
it got dark. Not
Yeah.
that my hair matters, but you know what I mean? Just
Right.
things like I recognized that I was getting maybe a little angsty, and
Oh, yeah.
I was angry. But
Mhm.
just that listening.
And to let go of
Yeah.
that, and to even letting go of trying to make sense of it all, like why
Yeah.
right has this happened
Right.
to us, but now it's almost like so many gifts are showing up in the midst of this traumatic, terrible, painful time. It's almost like, but is this also happening for us? And it's definitely shit's happening through us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we just never know. And that's why she uses the word delight. Whatever's showing up in the palm of our hand today, let us delight in it.
Yeah, why not?
You
Instead
know?
of being disappointed. And, we still have to show up. We still have to be curious about my health and go to doctor's appointments and be diligent. So it's not like a passive thing either.
Right.
It's doing what you have to do, right? And not being attached to.
Choosing the more practical spiritual option.
Yeah.
Like, because you could be caught in the fucking anger and just be rotten.
And there's so many people that preach this message, whatever, but their life seems to be like pretty okay. I just think it's way more powerful coming from Katie in the midst of the storm. It's not like she went through it, is on the other side, learned some things. Now she's turning around and sharing it with you all. Like, in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the unknown, she's in this place. And so to me, there's so much more power in it, because
there's no guarantee. We don't know when this is going to stop. We don't. And so we get to just kind of delight in what happens next. And we can hope, we have hope that my life will not even get back to normal, but I'll be a capable adult again. But we're not waiting for that, moment to happen for me to
find contentment.
Yeah, be content.
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the alternative sucks.
Yeah.
It really does.
Come on, boo.
But there's nothing wrong with just kind of saying that or being this sucks.
That's another thing I appreciate about her is even though she'll get to a place of contentment and openness and acceptance, the path there sometimes of allowing yourself to feel the feels, to be sad, to be mad, to be pissed, to be why, all of that, the shit I used to try and not allow myself to feel or overcome, or if I was feeling sad or bad about something, I always say I just don't pitch a tent and stay there, which is true, but she's taught me how to give myself permission to feel those feels, even if it's negative. I used to combat them, fight them, ignore them.
Yeah.
But it's almost like she's helped me learn that if you got a broken arm, you need to give it the proper allow it to heal properly. Because if you don't and prevent its healing or try and speed it up or be la, no, I'm good, your shit's not going to heal right, and it's going to be troublesome way
later.
Longer.
Right.
Yeah, those things don't go away. You can pretend, or you can, but in my experience, I can't speak for all of us, but in my experience, they come back up, and they come back up stronger, weirder.
Yeah, I used to think getting high would pay my bills if I just got high and forgot about them. And I was nah, they come up in different ways with creditors and more money attached to them. And
I think I bring that up because, I get accused of being Mr. Positive all the time.
Yeah.
The good foot. But it doesn't mean that we don't all experience the negative too. And I'm just practicing getting better at disclosing that with the world, as she's taught me to allow myself to process and feel the negative.
And be curious, why is that negative? Why did that come up? Why do I feel that way?
Man.
I don't know. I just think there's these patterns, and if we stay a little curious, maybe we can have some things dissolve when we embrace them because we see them, right?
Come on, which is what led to some of your breakthrough.
Yeah.
You were in the dark abyss, and instead of trying to fight it, you're just fuck it,
Yeah. I saw all kinds of things that I go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. I do that. I don't want to continue to do that. And I don't have it down yet. And it's all just kind of theories and feelings, right? And it's just a daily practice of working it out and not being too hard on ourselves, because we are creatures of habit, and constant reminders of what matters.
Jeez. Absolutely. Yeah. So huge. So huge. I almost want you to speak to any tattooer out there who maybe has a relationship more like ours, where his wife doesn't ever come to the shows, or her husband don't come to the shows, but the spouse says, I love and support you. For anyone that wishes that would change, or thinks that means something wrong with their relationship, you and I are the proof that it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong there.
I think it's the opposite for us. For us, it's proof that there's something really right.
Come on.
like for us, like I tried being your assistant for maybe a week,
Yeah.
and we're so different that we were fighting, and I was like, you can't just dump all this on me right now, you gotta give me
I was
time.
like,
And
look,
like,
I'm doing this portrait in an hour. I just need you to blow it up 10%.
like what's 10%? You don't do like
Just print 10%. Print 40. I'll pick one. You know.
it got hostile, and I was like, this does not work for us, right? So I think it's to not be afraid to like step out of boxes, or maybe there's like ideal relationships, like the way that Megan like is there everywhere you go, I think is so cool, right? And so I could get in that trap of thinking that's the ideal, right? Because it's so beautiful and really cool. But for us, it doesn't work. So it's to just not be afraid to just like really communicate with each other.
Thank you.
You know, and for us, I thought we were in agreement, like, oh, I don't go to shows, and you get to just, because like you work crazy hours and you like to give and people like to come to you, so like I'm just gonna let you go. And but with that, we never checked back in to see like, well, like has that changed in 5 years? Has that changed in 10 years? So I think it's just that constant communication and not being afraid of doing things that work for you, and don't worry like what that looks like to other people.
And it takes one person in the relationship to keep that conversation open and to initiate not only communication but the safety to like have real talk. And she's done that for us. So her and I have been able to communicate on such a deep level in every area of our life, business, sex, you name it, right? Insecurities, fears, doubts, anything. And our ability to like be safe enough to where I can tell her anything, even if I'm like ashamed or whatever, has gotten so rich and so safe. Well, now we can really communicate, and it's just done so much for us. But this thing called communication hip not only never goes away, but it gets deeper and deeper and better and clearer and safer and safer. And before you know it, we find ourselves in a place relationally that I didn't even really thought existed except for in the movies. But it's now our reality. But I can't take the credit. It took one of us, and in our case it was her, to literally lead us down that path.
Yeah, like we're best friends, and so
we
to
are.
me, like sometimes you have to separate. Like maybe the wife and me like wouldn't want to hear this, but like if we're partners, right?
Man.
Like it's just, I don't know, for us that works, where like we can like put our best friend hat on and be like, really talk to me, to me, and I don't have to make that mean anything about me, and so like I'm secure enough in myself, and I'm secure enough in us that I want to hear these things, and I want to have these conversations, and it's okay for him to go off and do and be and go to conventions alone and travel alone. And that works for us, right, in our communication. And it may not work for everybody, but it is like to not undervalue communication. And not be afraid.
In a baseline, there was two things that she threw on the table. This was a while ago, was like, one, getting real clear on your needs. And the permission to, with no judgment, to share it with the other person. And that was hard for me to do, but she knew it. And a list of almost deal breakers, things that like about you that I wish you'd change, has bothered me for years. And we can talk about it, and then eventually it's either A, can you change that? Or B, if we come to the conclusion that's who you are, you ain't never going to change that. For me, it was like being a morning person. For years, she almost resented me because I wasn't up at 7 a.m. and ready to...
I would do mornings with the kids by myself always.
Yeah.
Even Sundays, I just had this idea like oh, like the family's supposed to make breakfast together, you know, and that was not our reality. And I made that, you know, and it just, maybe I didn't even make it. It just felt sad to me. And I heard some radio show, this woman was like, you can't be resentful. That's not fair. It's not like, you can't do that to your partner. Either it's a deal breaker or it's not, and you process it and you deal with it, right? And so for him sleeping in, or his sleeping schedule, was a constant source of like pain for us. And so for me, I'm like, is it a deal breaker? No, I mean, of course it's not. How can I make that not a deal breaker? For me, it was like, well, then I need to feel like I want a nap then, or I want to know that like, okay, you sleep in, then I get to take a nap, right? So we just like that
Yeah.
communication.
Mhm.
It caused me to stop being resentful, stop being passive aggressive,
Because
stop
if it was
punishing
something I
him.
wasn't able to change or willing to change or gonna change,
You
then
tried.
right, and her choice was, then can she accept that? So if she's like, well, it's not going to be a deal breaker, then she also had to choose, then I'm not going to let it take me out and make me mad at you every fucking day.
But
the
that had
rest
to
of our
look a
lives.
certain way. It
Yeah.
wasn't just I'm going to swallow my feelings.
Right.
It was like I need something reciprocal almost,
Yep.
you know? And so
Yeah.
that's like that in a lot of things. It's just understanding what your needs are
And to be able to communicate it. And so in that process, even though she's like, hey, this isn't a deal breaker, we communicated the reciprocal part. But she did have specific things that she needs in our relationship to give me the opportunity, again, to decide, can I even do those, right?
Yeah.
And then gave me permission to think of my needs. And it probably took me 2 years to
I was
even
like prying them out of
be
them.
able to tell her
yeah.
my needs,
Yeah.
to even be able to like
And like
tell
how
her.
sad, like, you know, like on the surface and even underneath, we've had great relationship, but like, oh, like we can delight in how much cooler it can be. Like we didn't realize how cool it could be when there's just total transparency,
Total.
and safety, and
Yeah, and no judgment.
yeah.
You
And
know.
that's, you know, it's a practice too. Like we've
Yeah.
had, it doesn't mean we're perfect, but
Right.
it's just remembering why we're partnered up and like being your biggest fan and being your supporter and being okay if that doesn't look the same to me, you know, in the way I need. And oh, it's interesting.
So then the main thing for the tattooer that's in the same situation is the communication.
Yeah.
Because there is no right way to do it. And your supporters can be in the scenes at home,
Yeah.
holding the fort down,
Yeah.
not necessarily having to be at the convention with you,
Right.
cheering you on.
A lot of the things I do for Matt are unseen. Like Max and I, our son, were painting a banner for him one night before he left for a convention. Like
Yeah.
we weren't there, no one knew we painted that, but we did that,
That's
right?
right.
And like
That's right.
designing aisle 9 and like being a part of things, I can do it. I can do both, right?
Yeah.
I can support you in these maybe more invisible ways, but it doesn't mean I'm not all of your biggest fans. And like,
for real, she's one of my coaches. You
Yeah.
know? So even though it's unseen, like whatever I'm doing out there, I come back here to recharge, and she coaches me. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, for the people that come into aisle 9, and I'm sure I even went through this process long before I was even aware of it, but it's not me and him that decide if you work there or not. I think it pretty much goes to her and Phoebe.
that's Matt. He'll ask, he'll ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I trust her judgment and radar as well.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any weird shit from me when you met me, or like Matt started talking about me like, this motherfucker, he's
No, I
awesome?
loved you. I love like.
Are you
know,
being honest right now?
No, you're real,
Okay, cool.
right? And so like the fact that you were real and talented, like those things, like to me, that's what matters, right? So no.
She said the same way when she met Megan, you know,
Yeah.
when she came to our photo shoot, you know, and we got in the car. She's like, I love her.
Yeah.
Photo shoot.
When we did a photo shoot out back at aisle 9 right before we opened.
Oh, holy
Had I
shit!
not
That's the
met
longest.
Megan yet? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. don't
you
remember.
hadn't. It was that morning.
Wow,
you know,
dude,
that
we were
they had
working.
met. We had been, you and I had been working together for a year or more.
Yeah.
But she had never met Megan until we were about to open aisle 9, you know. and
Yeah, I
loved
just
her
like
immediately.
real people, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's
Yeah.
why, like, with Matt, I was so wrong. I thought what he was showing me at first wasn't real. And now I'm like, oh, no, like, that's him.
Sounds like a common theme.
Right? But now I know the fullness of him, right? And so if I think for a lot of people, if you value that kind of salt of the earth realness,
Yeah.
you can get kind of maybe disillusioned by people that seem all positive and so you're like a fully fleshed out person with flaws and quirks, and you're hilarious and like talented, and so I saw that in all of you guys, and
Yeah.
and what like really matters.
Honey, I love you so much.
I love you guys.
Yeah, and we went extra long today.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I got producer Mike over there has been texting me. Battery's about to die. wrap it up.
It's that bad.
Which is cool.
Supersized episode.
My God, honey, I love you with all my heart.
I love you. I love you a whole lot.
Yeah, I love
Thank
you
you
too.
guys. I love you.
Yeah. She's
freedom, everybody.
She's the mama of all
Was it
of
as
us.
bad as you thought it was going to be?
No.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's just like
until I watch it, and then I'll be like,
I had to quit watching them
Right.
unless him and Josh ask me to watch them. I won't watch them.
yeah.
I like try to forget them and just let it.
Right? Yeah,
Let it
totally.
shit
Keep
happen.
those palms open and
Yeah.
like
If we fucking came down here and turned all this shit on and paid for this and we're sitting here talking like fuck it, it's gonna be aired. That's how I see it.
right. And if
you
I
know?
saw it and I'm like, man, I look awful. Like all the insecurities, and I'd be like, don't post that. Don't.
I
Like,
can't tell you how many times that's why I quit watching them because of that.
and then you rob all these people that like actually really got something from, right? And the whole reason you guys are doing this. But I feel for you. It's vulnerable. You're
It
putting
is.
yourselves out there each week.
And we try not to talk about like we want to go deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah, you're not having shallow conversation.
Right.
But I also love that you guys aren't making yourselves authorities on anything. You're having conversations, you're talking, you're being relatable, you're bringing people on to like, so I appreciate that too, that causes conversation, causes people to think. And,
Me and Josh do our best to try and keep it humble just to balance him out, but
all that ego.
yeah.
Ego over there.
Honey, thank you for serving us from your table today.
Thank you guys.
My God, you're just the best.
Get a fucking room, man.
Oh, we've gone.
I'm really sorry. Mike.
I've actually done really good, don't you think?
Honestly, yeah, I am very proud of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done real good.
He's a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know. No.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in faithfully every single week. I am honored not only to be married to this beautiful Miss Katie Stratton, I'm honored to call her my best friend. I'm honored that I got to share you with the world today. Your light shines so bright. You know, ancient scripture says the light shines in the dark, although the dark sees it not, the light still shines. We ask you every week to give us feedback on your takeaways. How did today's show impact you? Folks, I want to know more than ever if there's anything my wife said to you today that turned something on the inside of you or freed you up in an area. Will you please write us to let us know? She'll read every one of your comments as well. It means the world that you even tune in and are on this journey with us every single week. It's vulnerable for us to be here and do this. It's more vulnerable for me to bring my wife on, for you to judge us. And it was vulnerable for her to come on with all her twerks and quirks and
Doesn't
fighting.
matter.
But it don't fucking matter.
Doesn't matter.
Right?
Yeah.
I love you, honey.
I am who I am right now. This is me. It's
Come
okay.
on, baby. And you are perfect. Yeah. Till next week. We love you all. This has been another episode of What, Hip?
The Tattoo Guardians Podcast.
Show. They make fun of me. I always end it with show. Love you guys. We'll see you next week.